Down to Earth edition has some of the very interesting topics that we would be covering. The most expected question from this would be biomass co-firing, which we would understand in a while, as well as fireflies. And then you had the grand solar maximum, which we would be the grand solar minimum, which we would be talking, which we have already covered separately, and we would be talking about it again. So coming on to first of all the US elections and the issues of climate. The idea is the two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, always have a tussle onto the implementation of the programs for climate. Now, the idea is all of the above energy policies which promoted the natural gas as a bridge between the fossil fuels as well as the clean energy has been important. And then Paris Agreement, what would be the US stand after the election results are out, and the idea of bringing in 100% clean electricity by 2035 was one of the major objectives that have been covered. Now the next important is the Essential Commodity Act. Now Essential Commodity Act, what we would be discussing is mainly onion. Now onion was part of the Essential Commodity Act since 2014. Later on the price was dropped in to bring a kind of stability in the market, and kind of export was discouraged by fixing the minimum export price for onions. Onion was banned nearly 3 times every year in last 5 years, so more than 17 times the export of onion was banned. In India, Lasalgaon in Maharashtra is one of the major producing centers, and it's the Asia's largest mandi for onions. However, this has witnessed severe losses this year, mainly in the rabi crop, because of the hailstorms, unexpected rainfall that occurred over and above the lockdown that had affected it. Now, if we talk about the responsible crops for inflation, we see 2% contribution of onion, 1% contribution of tomatoes, 11% contribution of rice, and 22% contribution of milk in this. And to curb this, we were to import nearly 1,20,000 tons of onions in the month of January. However, in India itself, you have nearly 12 million hectares of onion that is being cultivated next to China. Okay, so China is next to India, and most of our cultivation accounts for rabi crop. 70% of the onion cultivation goes to rabi crop, and then you have 20% to kharif and 10% to late kharif. So the rabi crop is important because that is the crop which has longer shelf life and remains good for a longer period. So the price structure also varies during this time. Now, with the changes in the Essential Commodity Act and the amendments coming in, there has been a significant upheaval going about the essential commodities and how this would finally go. The next is Taro. Taro is also known as Arbi in local language, or Colocasia. Now this is one of the 5th most consumed roots in the world. Calcium oxalate is present in the plant, which actually when you are making it makes your skin itchy. Its origin has been sorted out in the region of Southeast Asia. However, in many parts of the world, this is considered as wheat, mainly in the areas of Australia. This is considered as a wheat growing plant, but this is an excellent carbohydrate supplement, mainly for infants who are on a weaning diet, or it is also good for people for diabetes because it has low glycemic index. If there is a continuous drought for 7 months or so, the crop yield can be significantly declined by 26%. In Nagaland, the leaves of the taro are dried and bricks are made out of it, which are used in various meat dishes. In UP, these leaves are used to make pakoras or fritters. Similarly, there are 2 different species which have been demarcated by Linnaeus, who is known as the father of botany, and later on this has been used extensively in India. Now, as we said, this is considered as weed or a kind of unwanted plant, what we consider in many parts of the world, including Queensland, New South Wales and Australia. Then you have parts of Hawaii, French Polynesia, and in each of those areas it is considered as weed. It grows very, very quickly. Australia and New Zealand are one of the biggest exporters for taro, and Japan and United States are one of the biggest importers for it. Now, as per the COVID happening, we have seen undernutrition and malnourishment being severely witnessed in many parts of the world. During the various episodes of the globe in 1918, when the Spanish flu was witnessed, we have seen children growing up who were less educated and were poor. Similarly, in 2008 recession, we have seen underweight babies, and the similar is expected to happen with the COVID pandemic going on. So Human Capital Index by World Bank has talked about a generation of 2040 as a generation of stunted. The human capital is that a child who is born today can expect to attain at 18 years of his life is considered as a human capital index. So human capital index focuses on increasing child mortality during this period, mainly in the low income and middle income nations. The next is some of the important happenings across the globe. Now, in the last edition, we have focused on Panama disease. Recently, the Indian Council for Agricultural Research has come up with fusicont as one of the methods or biopesticides which could be used for G9 banana cultivators, and this would be a substantial cure for the Panama disease in bananas. Similarly, a lot of slum clusters have been removed in the region of Delhi along the railway tracks, and a lot of people have been rendered homeless because of it. We are also trying to meet the Sustainable Development Goal 6, which we have discussed separately in the Kurukshetra October edition on water and sanitation. So we'll go back to it there. Again, in India, we have seen a lots of patent filing. The patent filing has seen nearly 5 lakh applications that have been registered. But of these 5 lakh applications, nearly 3/4 of the applications are from foreign nationals in India. And in the period of 13 years, only 24% of the claims have come from the Indians in India. So definitely we need to work a lot on research and innovation in the field of development in India. Now, fireflies are interesting creatures. They produce a signature glow through their organs, which is located close to their abdomen, and when there is a predator attacking, they simply secrete drops of blood that is filled with poisonous substances, and there is a blinking pattern in the optical signal that produces or signal which helps in mating. Now, with the increase in the light pollution, we have seen the fireflies are now turning blind because they are unable to see in extreme light conditions, and due to artificial light and light pollution, we could say the population of fireflies had been declining constantly. Now, what they do is they basically take in the oxygen, combine it with a compound which is known as luciferin, and they produce light with almost no heat. So this production of light is what is known as bioluminescence. A very, very important question. So you have luciferin as the compound which produces bioluminescence, and 40% of all the insect species, this is something that is unique to this species, that is that they have the capability to produce bioluminescence with the presence of luciferin that is present. Now, they are known by different names in different parts of India. They are winged species, and they usually thrive only in a healthy environment which is toxic free. Recently, there have been researches that have been going on which have talked that the chemical from fireflies could be extracted to detect cancer, because they could simply illuminate or glow closer to the tumor cell. And over the years, the population has been declining, as we said, due to light pollution, due to high level of urbanization, deforestation, and also the fireflies turning blind because of higher light pollution, and also due to higher use of pesticides. The next important is the Gandhi's vision for a healthy body. So Gandhi's idea was very, very different. So Mahatma Gandhi believed that our body is made up of 5 elements, and that is something taken from the Vedic concepts. But according to him, illness was something that is mental, and bad air is the cause of 90% of the diseases. So if you have a healthy, regulated diet, your mind would be very, very fit and free from all the bondages that would be there, and a good thought process would ultimately be one of the basic reasons for fast healing. Similarly, we have one of the interesting discoveries being made by Professor C.V. Dharmadhikari, and he created a microscope which is the scanning tunneling microscope and scanning focus force microscope, both of those being developed from waste products which could be discarded computers, refrigerators or inkjet printers, and the components of those have been used for creating such microscope. So interesting story. Now another important concept is flash droughts. We have commonly heard about flash flood, sudden flooding in an urban area, but what is flash drought? Very important. Now this is a drought phenomena which can suddenly develop in 10 to 15 days. It could be due to intensification of higher evapotranspiration rate, extreme heat or higher solar radiation coming in, and US has a definition which says that a flash flood would occur within 4 weeks. Then there is if there is a record change in 2 of the 5 categories, that is abnormally dry, moderately drought, severe drought, extreme drought or exceptionally drought. In India, we have seen Madhya Pradesh is one of the largest soybean producer, and this has been badly affected due to flash droughts. 15% reduction in the crop has been seen. Also, during the period of 1951 to 2018, we have witnessed nearly 35 flash drought episodes, and in 1979, we had witnessed one of the most severe ones. The intensity in 2001 was again very high. Then you had 1986 and 1958. Also, according to IMD, we have a protocol which is known as SPI, which is a Standardized Precipitation Index. Now, this is a measure of the drought. It does not only measure the wind speed or the moisture, temperature, rainfall, but is also an important indicator for a localized index for agricultural growth. The next is here what we were saying as biomass co-firing. Now what has happened over the years, the coal machineries have been not running very efficiently. So we are trying to experiment a blending of coal machines with the biomass. Agricultural residue has been coming up in huge quantities, mainly UP, Punjab, Haryana contributing to 60% of those, and if you simply burn those, which is known as stubble burning, it could release huge amount of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, particulate matter, oxides of nitrogen and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, and therefore countries are now trying to adopt a co-firing. So whenever you have the coal sectors that are not working properly, you can replace those or blend those with the biomass agro residues and use those for a while. Japan is experimenting it up to a ratio of 84. China is one of the largest agro residue generator and has created an extensive policy to manage it. In India, we are also focusing on biomass co-firing, and this would basically reduce the level of pollution because the stubble burning would reduce. It would reduce the problems of smog in Delhi, and this would reduce nearly 73% of particulate matter, 47% of carbon dioxide emissions into atmosphere, 98% of sulfur dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. So here is one of the interesting studies that we have seen. So emissions from crop burning and from a coal power plant have been mentioned. Now, if the biomass is replaced in the coal power plant, this is what we get. So we have a significant development or reduction in the emissions that could be seen here. Also, here is an analysis of Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, where we have seen the available residue and the retiring power plants that are there, the maximum generation that could be drawn with the help of the biomass co-firing. So biomass co-firing is one of the major aspects, and then we have the various costs that the farmers receive per ton for agro residues. So again, it is a substantial income for the farmers based on the various crops that are there. The data has been quoted from DTE and CSC sources. Now, public sector undertakings, mining has become an interesting scenario. Now, for mining, what has happened? We have recently witnessed mine developer and operator in the name of MDO who have been appointed for the overall process, and there is no law for governing it. Adani, Ambe and BGR are three of the major MDOs that are there. Those are the mine developers and operators, and all the operational coal mining sector has seen a kind of complete process being transferred to the MDOs from acquisition of land to transportation of coal that has been witnessed. Now, there have been various experiments for the drugs going on for COVID. Recently, studies have come up that hydrochloroquine, which was previously considered effective, is not that effective for your COVID treatment, and also plasma therapy is now not considered as a viable option. So, the best standard care, what we considered, is a dose of antivirals with broad spectrum antibiotics, in extreme cases immunomodulators, and then supportive management should be taken into account. Now, plasma has been extensively used for treatment of Ebola over years, and similar to the plasma, we are talking about the MAB, which is the monoclonal antibodies therapy, which is artificially cultured in the laboratory, and Pharma Biocon is one of the leading experimenters for the vaccination for monoclonal antibodies that has been going on. So there are various aspects under which new discoveries have been taken into account. Now, under biodiversity development, we have seen the Aichi targets, which we have covered in our class on 33 environmental conventions. Very important. Of the overall 20 targets that were laid down, only 6 have shown partial success, and those 6 have been jotted down here. These are the 6 which have shown partial success. Of the 20 targets which encompass 60 elements, these are the only 6 where we have seen a significant development. Overall, we have seen nearly 68% fall in the monitored population of mammals, birds, reptiles over this period of last 40 years, and then a significant fall of 84% in the freshwater wildlife, or the freshwater wildlife pollution population that has been seen. Now, La Nina is an important concept. La Nina and El Nino, we have covered a separate lecture on that. So just go back for detailed understanding of this concept. The term comes from a Spanish term which means the girl. Now, this is the cooling phase of the ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation, and then you have the warming phase, which is the El Nino. Usually under La Nina, you have the cooling that takes place in the region of Central Equatorial Pacific, and because of this, India witnesses extreme weather conditions with very high proportion of rainfall, and when you have stronger trade winds that occur, there is a cooling mechanism that starts. We have witnessed that every 2 to 7 years we have episodes of La Nina and El Nino that are witnessed. La Nina tends to produce wetter monsoon conditions in India, in contrast to El Nino, which produces drier condition, and the peak usually comes around December to February, and in the monsoon season from June to September. So because of which this year was a year where we have exceptionally heavy amount of rainfall that was witnessed. Also, La Nina reduces the wind shear, which brings in changes in the upper air circulations, leading to more of intensified hurricanes that could be seen, and as a result we had numerous cyclones like Amphan that affected Indian coast. The next is the modern grand solar minimum 2020 to 2035. So this is where we ought to enter into a ice age, and that is what is the studies are quoting about. So 2020 marks the beginning of the 25th cycle of solar minimum. So there are sunspots on the sun, and these are the areas of strong magnetic field, and the darker the spot, they explain, cooler the phenomena. In the last little ice age was witnessed in 1645 to 1710, and it is believed that this period would witness nearly 70% reduction in solar magnetic activity that has been seen. Also, we have witnessed coronal mass ejection that was seen in 2017, and that was a time where you had bigger solar flares coming up, and this was where the solar activities was at its maximum, and now we are talking about a minimum. So those are some of the minimums that we have witnessed. The Borel minimum talked about dropping of the sea surface temperature mainly in the Norwegian Sea by 2 degrees Celsius, and a protective wall around one of the oldest cities was built to understand the impact of climate and to prevent the conflicts across those. Similarly, we had the Homer minimum, which was seen where you had the kingdoms of Greece that were affected, and there was abrupt change in the warm conditions. Then we had these 4 important minimums that were witnessed, and this was again where you had the little ice age as it was caused, and this was an elongated period where glaciers started to advance in the region of Alps and Venezuela in south, and there was a kind of central Europe which was mainly affected, and this is where we are talking about again a decline in the temperature by at least 1 degree Celsius, and this would be a significant drop. But on the other hand, the warming that is being induced by the greenhouse gases could be controlled because of this. So let's see what actually turns up in the next couple of years. But yes, we are to witness numerous changes in the upcoming years. Now this solar minimum is very, very important. The important timelines and the various solar minimums, the various ice ages that we have witnessed are important, and a quick summary has been given here. So those were some of the highlights that we have discussed. Among the top highlights, I repeat again, fireflies, solar minimum and biomass co-firing is very, very important topics that you must know for your examination perspective. We would be covering many more interesting topics in the further sets. Stay tuned from our side. Have a wonderful day ahead.